Okay, now to get into the QuickBooks section of the course, and I'm going to go through the tutorial from Chapter 2. If you look at the instruction document and Chapter 1 in your textbook, that'll give you the basic specifications, features, things to go through, and download the program. So make sure you click on the link here to go to get the instructions. As far as what to do to go through and download, just follow those step by step and all should be well. I've given you a link here to go to and download the program from the QuickBooks website. So make sure you're choosing QuickBooks Accountant and 2018 for your version of QuickBooks. And then you'll be able to click on and see and download the files to your computer. Once again, as I mentioned in the syllabus, you need to have this for a Windows program. So have a PC that you can put this on, preferably a laptop, because you're going to have to take the tests. Go to your proctor. So you got to be able to take that to your proctor. So please put this on a laptop if possible. If you put it on a desktop, make sure your proctor can come to you. If you're somebody that owns a Mac, you've got to be able to run this in a Windows environment, and that's something ultra techy that I'm not necessarily going to be an expert in. So please do your best to research online or talk to our help desk on how to complete that if you do not have access to a Windows machine. So once you get into QuickBooks and get installed, get everything going, open up the program. Should be a green circle with the QB logo on your desktop. And you should get a window similar to this when you open it up, except mine's got a bunch of previous companies in it. Yours will be blank. So the first most important thing to do, we've got to get company files into QuickBooks. We've got to get company files out of QuickBooks when you are done with your assignments. So to open a company into QuickBooks, you're going to click Open or Restore a Company. Then when your options here, you'll select Restore a Backup Copy and click Next. You'll want it to say Local Backup. And now you're going to want to go find the files on your computer. So you should have went into the Armand Dalton website as well. It's going to talk about in the instructions packet and give you the 5 company files that come along with the textbook. So I'll go in here and you see we've got these files: Jackson Start, Larry Start, Rock Start, Super Start, and Warren Start. So we want you to practice loading these into your QuickBooks, and once you get them into your QuickBooks one time, you will have them. You won't have to do this process again for these files as you go through the various chapters and tutorials within the textbook. And then when it gets to the assignments, I will provide you with QuickBooks files that I've created, and we'll walk through this same thing to start those assignments. So I'm just going to start with Jackson Start here, so I'll click on it. And I'll click Open, then we'll click Next. And hopefully it would automatically go to your QuickBooks program files here to put this. Mine, it's not doing that, so I'm just going to go save it to My Documents folder. And now in this section, I want you to have the company name / your name when you go to this step. And then hit Save. So that's going to be the first question on every assignment: is your name in the company file? It'll go through, let the little blue wheel spin. Please don't touch anything while the blue wheel is spinning. It may cause it to crash. And hopefully in short order, we'll have a company in QuickBooks. So you see here now, here's Jackson Supply Company, and here is what our main home page will look at like for with any company that we have open in QuickBooks. But let's make sure we can go through and do it with all of the companies. So once we're at this window here, we'll click File up in the upper left corner. Once again, we'll go to Open or Restore Company. We'll click Restore a Backup Copy. And now you'll walk through the steps once again, just like we did a couple seconds ago. So you'll want to select Local Backup. Once again, we'll go find the file where you saved it. And I'll select Larry Start. And now I'm just going to change the name here to Larry's Landscaping on this one. And once again, to the file name. Now you see here the QuickBooks 2018 folder. So ideally that's what will come up as far as for where you're saving your company files. And we'll just let QuickBooks do what it's got to do here. And once again, completed it in short order, and we get back to our home page. If I wanted to go back to the file that I had loaded up previously, I would just click File, Open Previous Company, and there should be Larry's Landscaping, and there should be Jackson Supply Company. So you can work back to your other files once they're in here. We only, like I said before, we only have to go through this restore process once. We'll do it again. We'll go to Rock Start. And I'm going to change this one to Rock Castle Construction. Hit save. Now that's going to be a rare thing that you're going to have to change the company name. From now on, you'll get where it's correct. Name the name of the company. This is just separate with these QuickBooks practice files. What they were doing on this file name, adding all that extra stuff to it, but we'll just simplify it down. Well, there's a little bit of a slip up. well fine, we will just cancel out of this for now, and we will deal with that later. So let's go through and restore our last company. And that's going to be Warren Start. And as you can see in the name, that's Warren Sports Supply. So the company that we've been doing in the practice set here for the last few weeks, at some point when we get later in the course, we are going to complete a majority of those transactions within QuickBooks and show you how much simpler our lives are doing it with the computerized system and completing that project. But we'll save that for the really late in the semester, once we get to chapter 9. So there's Warren Sports Supply. I'm going to go shuffle between things and go back to Rock Castle Construction. So if you want to just click File, open Previous Company, and then select Rock Castle Construction in your drop-down box. So now we can go through and check out the rest of the Chapter 2 tutorial. So this is just going to be getting familiar, going through a little bit of description about our QuickBooks file, all these different things within QuickBooks that we're going to get into more depth as we go through the tutorials. So if you skip ahead to page 6, page 7, we can see our home page. If you're ever not sure which company you're in, you can look at the very top here. You see at the top of my screen it says Sample Rock Castle Construction. So that'll tell you what company you are in. Or when I click this Open Previous Company, like we had just done to move around, you see the one listed at the very top is the one I'm currently in, is Rock Castle Construction. So we got a couple different ways there just in case you're not sure which company that you have open, because we're going to be moving back and forth between these sample files that came through the textbook, and like I said, we'll be going through different files for our chapter assignments. So you can see we've got the name up there, then we've got the menu bar, similar to a Word or Excel document. We've got File, Edit, View, Accountant, Company, Customers, etc., etc. That will allow us to get into specific things related to all of these different areas. We've also got icons and buttons here on our home page. You can see all over that we would click on these icons to go into different sections of QuickBooks, and of course those are all related to our home page. So that's kind of our default spot that we go to work within QuickBooks. Most of the stuff that we will need to do you can find from this window here. We've also got various sections within QuickBooks. We've got vendor-related activities. You see it's broken down to on our home page. Customer-related activities, employee-related activities, company-related, and banking. Those can also be found on your shortcut over here on the left side. So you see Homes at the very top. Whenever you click Home, it'll take you back to this window. You can also scroll down and see you've got customers, you've got vendors, you've got employees, you've got reports, etc., etc. So we've also got some of those shortcuts there that you can have access to them. So if you want to flip ahead to page 8, we can see how we get into these various areas would be just to click on them. So for instance, if I just click on customers here in the middle of my page, that takes me to my customer center. And this would be a list of all the people that I do business with making sales to all our customers. You can see we have their name listed. In this case with the construction company, it's a little more complicated, and you see they got various jobs listed under each customer's name, then also their current balance, what they would owe you. Once a customer is highlighted, you see on the right side of the screen we've got basic details about them and transactions that we've entered in with them for whatever period of time that we set in the drop-down box. If I click X up here, I would go back to my home page. If I click Vendors on the very top of my screen, this is going to go to my vendor center, which once again is going to be similar to the customer center that we just looked at. So anybody we do business with purchasing goods or services, we've got here. We've got a list of them, we've got what we currently owe them, and then once we have them selected on the right side of the screen there, we've got their basic information and transactions that we've entered in with them. On page 9 there, we're going to find vendor here, Hamlin Metal. So if I just scroll down my list a little bit, you can see I find Hamlin Metal. If I want to get into this basic information, I can just double click on their name. And you can see what we put in at the very top here, that's what enters in the customer or in the vendor center, what showed up on the previous page. And then we've got all their basic details. We could click in here and change any of this information, if a phone number changed, if an email changed, if a mailing address changed. And then we've got various tabs. So under payment settings, you see we've got our payment terms of whether we get a discount or not. If we have a credit limit with them and we're only allowed to purchase so much at a time, we can enter that. Vendor tax ID, if we need to send them a 1099, and various tabs that we'll get into as we go here. If I hit cancel, that'll take me back to my vendor window, or my vendor center I should say. If I come up here and I wanted to create a new one, I could just select new vendor, and you see it'll open up a blank window of what we just saw, and we can put everything in Scratch. And once again, if I X out, that'll take me back to my home page. Under the company side, you see we've got our chart of accounts. This is our general ledger. So all the things that would have been in the back of the flowchart book in our previous practice set. Items and services would be all the stuff that we sell. So that would be our price list, document, was it document 2 or 3 in the practice set. Inventory activities we'll get into a little later as far as dealing with, purchasing, adjusting our inventory. Under the banking section, you can see we have here recording deposits, reconciling, writing checks, etc., etc., things that we all had to do in the practice set. We had to record the deposits that we took to the bank. We had to reconcile our bank statement within the month-end procedures, and of course we had to write checks to pay our bills. So all windows that we're going to be using down under the Employee Center, as we have being able to record time, paying our employees, and taking care of our payroll liabilities, which we had those adjusting entries in the practice set for keeping track of our payroll tax expense and the various liabilities that made it up. If we're ever not sure what any of these buttons do on our home page, just leave your cursor on it. So on the vendor center, if I left my cursor on vendors, see it gives me a little description. If I click over to purchase order and just hover my cursor there, See, it tells me what that is. So just spend some time wandering around your home page here and taking a look at what each of these items are. So if I want to get into what any of these things do, we just got to click on them. So for example, starting on page 12, we're just going to play around with moving around to these various windows. So if I want to open up a blank invoice, would come down here to create invoices, just click on it. And this will be where we bill out to our customers. So remember in the practice set we would have made invoices with Andrews College, for example, when they wanted to buy product from us. So we would have spots to put in the date, the invoice number, all their mailing address information, if they have credit terms. And then down here on the bottom we'd put in what items do we want to sell them. And we have all the items that are listed in our items and services window. And it'll factor in sales tax if necessary to get us to a total invoice without us having to use a calculator, once again like we had to do in the practice set. If I wanted to open up a blank purchase order, I'd just come up here to purchase orders in the upper left corner of my home page. And you can see once again, looks similar to the invoice, except the purchase order is for ordering inventory that we want to buy. So like back in the practice set, we ordered stuff from Velocity Sporting Goods. We had to do the purchase order first. So here's where we would fill in what items of inventory that we want to get from them, and then how much we're going to pay for them. Brings up a little bit on page 14 about the shortcuts icon bar like I went through previously. You can go through, you see there's a button there for invoice that would have opened up the same window that we were just in a little bit ago. Also up on the file menu, if we click these areas, for instance if I select customers here, this I can also get into it. Click create invoices, or also the shortcut here, Control I. Enter sales receipts, create statements, receive payments, credit memos. So these are all buttons that you can see that are down here in the customer section in the middle of the page. On the vendor side of things, enter bills, pay bills, there's create purchase orders, receive items. You see all these things that are up here at the top under the vendor center. So there's going to be multiple ways to get into all of these areas. Whatever is most comfortable for you, however is best for you to remember to do it. Doesn't really matter to me, just be able to do it. At the end of the day, I care that you can complete the task. I don't really care how it gets there. So we can see all those items from pages 14 through 16 there. Once again, continue to play around and just to start getting comfortable with working your way around QuickBooks. We skip ahead to page 17. We're going to go back into the Create Invoices window, and we're just going to do a little more playing around here. So the first thing you notice from this window is the default information that's automatically there. So it's going to be the date and whatever the next invoice number is in line. So once you create an invoice, you click Save and New, it'll go to the next number in order, 1100, 1101, 1102, 1103, etc. So it'll automatically be doing that, and we don't have to have the sheets of paper with the specific numbers printed on them already. Once again, like we had in the practice set. The date is going to default to the current date. Or if you start changing dates for your transactions, that's what it's going to go to. So you got to be careful with paying attention to dates, especially in your assignment, because I'm going to be mixing it up and having various dates, so you make sure you get the correct one typed in. So that's automatically going to show up. Let's see, flipping to page 18, let's select a customer. So we're going to find Gordon Johnson and his utility set. So I can select the drop-down box here, and I could scroll down and find Gordon Johnson and his utility shed, which is about the middle of the list here. And you can see once I click on his name, now more default information filled in. So you see his bill to address, his ship to address, his credit terms, they automatically filled in. So all this would have been from the customer center that we just took a look at a little bit ago. So we set up all that default information with our customers, so it'll make our lives easier when you get to carrying out transactions. And then down on the bottom, you see it automatically factored in San Tomas sales tax rate and that percentage. Once again, that would have been set up back in the center. If we want to get to these different boxes, we can go and click on them, or you can just keep hitting your tab. So you see, as I hit the tabs here, the green boxes, it's scrolling through the various items. And those are just in there to make our lives easier. We could go change that to whatever if we had a change. So if we had a change in credit terms, if we had a change in date, we could go fix that. If we had a change in address that we hadn't updated in our previous, in the customer center. Let's say I've got this invoice like this. If I just hit enter from the top of page, whoop. Go back out here. Well, that should not have done that. It should not have saved a blank transaction. Well, that is an interesting little glitch. So it should not let us have saved that from the top of page 20, but so be it. So this is something that maybe has changed in this version, and the textbook is not on top of it, and apparently I did not see this. I guess I don't do it, not in a habit of saving blank stuff. But it should have made us type items down here. So make sure you enter in what items you're going to sell. The information items on this sheet, like I kind of went through, we've got dates. You can see dates can be set up here by selecting it on a calendar, or if we wanted to change it, you could just type it in. So we've got options there. You see, once I changed the date, based on my credit terms, the due date changed. So it's factoring that in for us based on what we enter in. Like we saw, we've got drop-down arrows for entering in customers. So it looks like we're going to play around here with making an invoice, so I'm just going to go ahead to open up a new blank one here. And on page 22, we're going to create an invoice for Darcy Robson. You can see I can just start typing that name in and it'll automatically go to it, so we don't necessarily have to go down the list, but once again do whatever's comfortable, and we'll select the clinic. You can see her information plugs in there. We'll plug in the date. You want to go through and do it on the calendar, you can sure do that on the bottom of page 22. Just to show you, what if I accidentally typed the wrong one in? Let's say I typed in September 32nd. You see it's not going to let me do that. So there's some internal controls within QuickBooks that will stop us from making a mistake that we shouldn't be able to do. So one of those is in the date. And then down on page 23, it wants us to switch to a different customer. Just for our alliteration here, for example, I'm not going to bother with that. And it wants us to find wood door exterior. So I'll just scroll down to my list here, find wood door, and select on the exterior one. And you can see it fills in the item, it fills in the name of the item, and the rate that we normally charge for it. So that can be found in the item list. That's back on our home page, and we'll go through later more specifically how to do that. If I change the quantity to 3 and I hit tab, you see it automatically does the math for me and multiplies that out. So one thing that we didn't have the availability for in the practice set as well. You can see it's factored in the sales tax based on those taxable items that I'm going to sell, and updated the total amount due for the invoice. So we can use QuickBooks to save time for ourselves and not having to do those things like we did when we did them by hand. So it wants us to play around with changing the ship to address. So I could go through and do that. See save and close, save and new at the bottom, or clear. We can hit clear and blank this all out, start over again. If we hit save and close, it'll take us back to our home page. Or if we hit save and new, it'll open up a new blank invoice for us to work on. So for instance, if I hit save and new, now it's going to say, hey, did you want that shipping address change to be the same forever? If we click yes, and it'll do that. If we click no, and it'll be just a one-time thing. And now you see it opens up the next invoice, invoice 1102 in line. So those are buttons that we have that we'll have throughout the various different transactions that we try to carry out here in QuickBooks. Another thing on the middle of page 25 is the radio button. So if we click the Enter Bills button here on the upper left side of our home page, we could select that. You see in the upper left corner here we have bill or credit. So we may have options that switch between what a certain window does. So each window within QuickBooks might not do just one thing, depending upon if it has a radio button. And on the bottom part of 25, 26, and 27, it talks about the tabs. I already showed you those within the Customer Center, so you can go take a look at those if you would like. And then we can also export things to Excel. So if you scroll ahead to page 28, we're going to show you how to print or export to Excel So we're going to click Vendors on our home page here and go into our Vendor Center. And if we wanted to print out this list, we could select Print here, up just under our File menu. We could click Vendor List, Vendor Information, Vendor Transactions, or if we wanted to export it to Excel, we could click here Excel, Export Vendor List, or specific transactions. So generally, when I want you to run reports within QuickBooks, I'm going to have you export them to Excel so that you can then upload them to Blackboard and I can grade the request. So you won't have to print anything out. So if I just clicked Export Vendor List there, then it's going to come up with the options on page 29 there. Am I creating a new worksheet, replacing an existing, updating existing, or a CSV file? So if you have any issue with getting these to export to Excel, just do it as a .csv file. We'll click Export. Let the little blue wheel do its work. And you can see down here on the bottom, my Excel is opened up. If I click on it, now it'll open up my list of my vendors. You can see their balance and all the information about them from the Vendor Center. So if we needed to provide a report to another department, we could do that there. And you can work through this just like any other Excel document that you've had from other courses or from Miss Nelson's courses. I just want to close this out. I'll just hit X and I don't have to worry about saving it. When it gets to running reports, if you could copy and paste them into your questions worksheet that I'm going to give you, that'll save me some time from having to open up multiple files. So that's one way you can get information out. The other thing is that's going to be a big part of getting information out of QuickBooks is once we've done the transactions, we have financial reports. So we've got income statements, balance sheets, receivables reports, payables reports, employee reports, lots of different reports that can tell us how our business is doing. But the most basic, most important financial statement that we're going to have is going to be our income statement, or as it's called in QuickBooks, a profit and loss statement. So that's listed on page 30 here. We can come up here to Reports on our File menu, Company and Financial, and then you can see Profit and Loss Standard, and there's a whole bunch of different things we can do with that. You can see there's a detail listing, a comparison year to date, a comparison to last year, etc., etc. So for now, I'll just show you the Profit and Loss Standard. You can see I click it, boom, there it is. So nothing we got to do by hand, like those few receivables, payables reports that you had to do at the end of the practice set. So QuickBooks will give us the information. Up in the upper left corner, we can set what time period are we at. It's always going to default to the current month that it is in. So make sure to watch that on what time period I ask for. And what basis is it? Is this company an accrual basis company or a cash basis company? And you can just quickly make that change up there. And if we wanted to get this out, once again, we could come up here to Excel and click Create New Worksheet. And voila, here's our profit and loss report. So there's chapter 2 within QuickBooks. So a summary of how to get in. Oh, we got to do the last step. So we did how to get into the company. The last step to every assignment is going to be saving a backup of your work so that you can upload that backup to Blackboard, and then I can upload it to my machine and see what you did. So to save a backup, and in practice when you guys are out running your companies and you have QuickBooks files, make sure you're doing this on a regular, I would say at least weekly basis, so that just in case you have something happen to a computer, you don't lose all your information. So go down to File, Backup Company, and then Create Local Backup. So Local Backup, hit Next, and now you're going to browse and go, where do I want to do this? So put this to the file folder wherever you keep your stuff associated with this course. I'm just going to put it on my desktop for now. Hit OK. Hit OK, and it's going to say, hey, do you know if you save this to your desktop and that if you have a hard drive failure, you're still toast? Yes. Yes, we know that. Just go to use this location. So there's another thing for when you're doing this in reality and to practice. Make sure you're saving this to a Google Drive, to a OneDrive, to a flash drive, somewhere else, so it's not on your hard drive. We'll click Next, and you can see there's your file name, your company with your name, and then you see the one that you save is going to have the date attached to it that you saved it. So then you know that that's the one with your work, and that's the one you need to upload to Blackboard, is the file, because you're going to have the file that I give you, and now you're going to have this file. So make sure you're getting the .qbb file with a date on it. That's going to be the one you want to submit. So we'll just hit Save. And in just a minute, we'll be good to go. Me. Come on. Come on. Come on, little computer. Taking a little more time to save the backup than it did to create the company file. So when it's done, you could finally get this message here that it's saved, and then you go to your folder and the file should show up there.